Now, Daniel Jones has signed a 4-year extension worth $160 million with $35 million in incentives, $82 million guaranteed, which means it's a 2-year guaranteed deal. The last 2 years are not guaranteed. And they gave Saquon the non-exclusive tag, $10 million in 2023 if he remains with the Giants. And Daniel Jones' cap hit in 2023 is going to be $18.5 million. So with this move, the Giants go from $44 million in cap space to a projected possible $16 million to $24 million cap space. So it gives them some flexibility to make moves. And they have 11 picks in this upcoming draft. Daniel Jones gets his $40 million guaranteed. Drew, what do you think about Daniel Jones getting this money?
So I was very adamant this entire season. I need Daniel Jones to get a contract extension from 30 to 35 million. I never, ever, ever touched that 4 number. I didn't want to do it because I understood that is for selective territory. However, now we live in a reality where the potential is there for Daniel Jones to make $40 million continuously for 4 years. Why this deal is not as bad as people are trying to make it out to be is because, essentially, this is a glorified franchise tag. Joel said that best, and he's 100% correct on that. The franchise tag this year for Daniel Jones would have been around $31 million, I believe. But now, instead of that, they're instilling a vote of confidence in Daniel Jones. Say, hey, we're giving you 2 years now. We're giving you the money that you wanted. Show it to us. This also allows them a little bit more cap flexibility, like you mentioned already. With Daniel Jones' cap hit, it'll probably be around, you said, around $19 million, which that includes Saquon's franchise tag already, which means that now they'll be able to be a little bit more active this offseason because there are rumors, potentials that receivers can be moved. DeAndre Hopkins, of course, that's one of those names. More so, I want to speak to the potential of what could happen on a draft day because last year, A.J. Brown wasn't supposed to be moved. There was no rumors of A.J. Brown being moved. There was no rumors of Hollywood Brown being moved. Suddenly on draft day, A.J. Brown, the bigger of the two, absolutely, but 2 big names at the wide receiver position were moved for first-round picks. Now, I don't see that being the case with the Giants per se. However, would it be insane to see them try and go out and get a DJ Moore potentially? Who knows that the Panthers are in the business of selling, but we don't know that whole situation. Chris Godwin on a team that right now, what's their direction in the Tampa Bay Buccaneers? We really don't know. They just paid a receiver and Chris Godwin, but don't really have the quarterback that you can really trust, and not Kyle Trask. That's a joke. Is he one of those names that could potentially move? Mike Evans potentially. Understand that he's getting older. Is he not going to be? Is that not money that the Bucs want to allocate towards an older receiver? Although he's been the model of consistency, because you understand you need other assets elsewhere. So it's not insane to understand that the Giants needed to lock this down, because what other options did they have? To stay where they are in the draft, hope for the best, and not have that quarterback, not pay Daniel Jones, and restart this process. When we did the show a couple of weeks ago, I said the exact same thing. It would take the same amount of time for you to build a championship roster, or try and build a championship roster with or without Daniel Jones. So why not just bank on having the quarterback already? Understand that this guy was good enough to at least take us to the playoffs with a roster that was horrendous, one of the most overachieving teams that we've seen in a long-ass time, and win a playoff game. And yes, I'll use context because I'm not one that likes to shy away from the truth. That Vikings defense was atrocious. But nevertheless, what'd I say?
No, I just said Mike White.
Oh, no, what about him?
He beat up on the Vikings.
Oh, no doubt about that. He definitely did.
Games.
But at the minimum, Daniel Jones, in the biggest moment of his career, outside of course the Eagles where they absolutely got dominated. Eagles were a simply better team on both sides of the ball. But against the Vikings where Kirk Cousins is answering every punch that Daniel Jones is throwing at him. But that didn't stop Daniel Jones. He continued to overcome. He continued to get the ball down the field. Also, of course, Saquon Barkley now being tagged. You needed to bring Daniel Jones and Saquon Barkley back if you were the New York Giants, because these were the two main reasons, the two only reasons offensively, player-wise, why you were able to have success. Let me not disrespect my boy Andrew Thomas, of course, one of the best left tackles in the game, but I'm talking position players, skill position players. Daniel Jones, Saquon Barkley, the most essential pieces to the Giants having success, not named Brian Daboll, of course. But now your focus needs to be getting Daniel Jones a receiver. You cannot continue running out the same old wide receivers when they're the slowest group of wide receivers in the National Football League, when they run an average of a 4.7. You need to go out and be active. You need to put Daniel Jones in a position to be evaluated properly, because I hate this. He only threw 15 touchdowns this season. He only made 7 big throws according to PFF. Get him a true wide receiver, and we can really evaluate. And, of course, people like to mention the 15 touchdowns, passing touchdowns, but refuse to mention he had over 700 rushing this season. They refuse to mention that he would get into the end zone continuously as a quarterback. Daniel Jones is a fringe elite rusher at the quarterback position. And I say fringe because we had this conversation earlier. You have Justin Fields, you have Lamar Jackson. Those are the cream of the crop at the running back. At the rushing aspect of being a quarterback, no doubt. Then you have Jalen Hurts. Then you have Josh Allen. Daniel Jones, Kyler Murray. Those are the next 4 in that group. You need to include Daniel Jones when you talk about rushing quarterbacks. He's deserved that. And it's funny to me how a lot of these upper echelon quarterbacks get that credit and that nod of the rushing aspect to their game, but suddenly we don't like to mention Daniel Jones' rushing abilities when talking about Daniel Jones. All we like to do is mention that this guy is getting paid, he wants to get paid or did get paid this stupid number of money. Meanwhile, he only had 15 passing touchdowns. But how about, again, use context, shout out to my boy Joel Moran, and understand that he's throwing to no one. He made Isaiah Hodgins someone that we can sit here and talk about because they were that desperate at the wide receiver position. A guy that was a free agent, was cut by the Bills, was picked up by the Giants, and Daniel Jones was able to have success with him. Bring him a true option so we can really evaluate. This is essentially a 2-year deal. The Giants said, listen, we trust you. This is our vote of confidence. Now get it done. But the Giants still have work to do because they need to put him in a better position to really have fans give him a fair assessment.
Listen,
I want to hear John. I'll be honest.
Yeah. John, I'll let you talk quickly. It's just, Drew name dropped me, so I should respond.
Context.
Right?
No, I said context. Joel Moran, that's you.
Even if you add in the rushing, it's 22 total touchdowns
and 3,900 total yards.
Okay, 22 total touchdowns. Is that moving you?
Not a ton.
Over 700 rushing.
That's the breakout year. 22 total touchdowns we're talking about.
At the quarterback? And that's crazy.
Listen, it's not, I have been like, people talk about me as if I don't like Daniel Jones. It's not
enough. I don't want to hear it. Your Daniel Jones card stripped.
It's just that I am someone that's very even-keeled in these moments.
Cap.
Where I evaluate Daniel Jones fairly. You evaluate Daniel Jones so far out the spectrum where, yes.
I've never called him top 10. I've never called him elite.
You took him over Tua.
No, I did not.
Yes, you did.
Did he not take him over Tua?
You probably took Tua.
Nah, bro. I remember you taking him over Tua.
No, I did not.
I don't know.
Well, we could go back on the film and look at that.
No, I can tell you exactly what I said. With the fact that Tua's injury concerns are a strong question, that if you wanted to take Daniel Jones, it would be understandable. But what goes on in the football field at the quarterback position, I take Tua 10 out of 10 times. Respect
now,
me. Don't ever do that. It's my guy for life.
This is the thing about Daniel Jones. Yes, the wide receiver group is not good. It is what it is. I don't think Daniel Jones made those guys, though. And I think that you often try to say these quarterbacks make these players when maybe sometimes this guy just didn't get an opportunity. He was just having to be good. Because Isaiah Hodgins, as much as Daniel Jones made him, he was wide open a lot.
Yeah, and Josh Allen, he couldn't be successful.
He never got an opportunity. And, who knows what went on in that.
Like Gabe Davis.
But who knows what went on in that building, but we're not sure what happened. But I remember you telling me Kyler Murray made Christian Kirk, and then he goes to Trevor Lawrence and has his best season of his career.
Talking about an elite prospect.
I remember you telling me Derek Carr made Hunter Renfrow. I don't think he made Hunter Renfrow. Renfrow was just injured this past season.
Nah, he was lucky for that because he was not great by any means. Not even good.
I think that sometimes these players are just better than we expect. With that being said,
Kirk, one you got.
Are the Giants receivers good? No, they're not. I think this year what helped them as a team is that they were able to run the ball effectively.
Absolutely.
Yes, you can point to Daniel Jones being one of the catalysts of their rushing attack and their offense.
Definitely.
But when it comes to you often like to prop up Daniel Jones as the nucleus of the offense and the reason it works. When I think it's easily Brian Dable.
You said I like to do that?
I feel like you give all the credit to Daniel Jones.
So you just capped.
Am I crazy for thinking that?
Not
you
all
can-
of. Not all of. He
appreciate
gave
that.
credit to
Every
to
single
Andrew
time.
Thomas, to Dable. He gives Daniel Jones more credit than we do.
And that's it.
I think that for
Well,
me,
I'm here.
when I think
my
about the
fucking
Giants and Daniel Jones and
Don't
Brian
try
Dable
to
in the
cap my name.
situation,
Don't do that. Not with me.
I barely hear you talk about Brian Dable, bro. I'm sorry.
I said outside of Brian Dable,
You
when we're talking about
allocate
players.
5 seconds to Brian Dable and you talk about Daniel
it's
for
a
10
it's a
minutes.
Daniel Jones
He's
topic.
big.
It is the Daniel
You
Jones.
like,
Daniel Jones
like I'm
topic.
sorry, but when I think about the Giants, I can go on for hours about Dable. Maybe I'll give 5 minutes to Daniel Jones. But he is the reason.
You have no respect
And
for
then
him.
Saquon Barkley being an all-pro running back again helped this offensive
Definitely.
line. I saw
Absolutely.
there was numbers on Twitter about when Daniel Jones has Saquon and when he doesn't. And
Right.
he's a significantly worse quarterback. That being said, every quarterback will benefit from an elite rushing attack.
Absolutely.
That is the case for everybody across the league. I think that for the reasonable price, the Giants can win with Daniel Jones. It might be difficult, and although this is a glorified franchise tag, I think they gave this contract to Jones because, one, they aren't 100% sure about him. That is number one. I think number two, they're giving themselves a 2-year window to try to compete and try to compete right now. They have some cap space, and I think the first move I'd make is going and getting Jacoby Myers on free agency. That's a guy that I'd probably pay for. And then they have 11 picks in the draft. If in the first round with 25th pick they can get a Zay Flowers, you can now rebuild this wide receiver room, and you can see how Daniel Jones looks like with wide receivers. But I will also say that last year, the Giants won, I think it was 8 one-score games.
Yep.
That type of variance on a year-to-year basis is just not going to happen. And it's very rare. We saw the
Just like
Vikings.
the Vikings.
Yeah, we saw the Vikings go from 7, 8 one-score losses in 2021 to winning those games in 2022. And then it so happened they were undefeated in those games. And in the playoffs versus the Giants, they lost the only one-score game and they had in the season. That was the first loss of one score.
At home.
Yeah, at home. But if you watch the Vikings, you knew that every single game of theirs is going to be about that. Like those final possessions, those plays that come down to the wire. It's been the case all season. But I look at the Giants and who they beat. The Titans, the Panthers, the Bears. It's not impressing anybody.
Titans were a good team early in the season. Respect.
That was week 1.
It was a big win.
And it was a
Go
few,
ahead.
y'all won by the Giants.
That was funny. I
Goodness.
respect that.
The Giants won by a field goal. The Ravens respectable. The Jags respectable. And even the Jags, I mean, Daniel Jones threw, I think, a pick 6, and they got called back. I remember that game. The Texans, not really impressive. The Commanders, they tied with them before. You know, okay, when the Colts with Jeff Saturday, these aren't impressive wins. This year, you have at home, you have the Cowboys, Eagles, Commanders, Packers, Jets, Patriots, Rams, Seahawks. Better
Don't
schedule.
forget the Vikings,
That's
though.
harder.
The Vikings are a part of those wins as
That's
well.
a fact.
You're right. In the,
I'm just saying.
I just didn't mention
in
regular
the
season.
playoffs.
I didn't mention regular season.
It's
That's fine.
heightened.
Yeah. In the
Respect.
playoffs, they beat the Vikings. Away opponents, Cowboys, Eagles, Commanders, so the division.
Yep.
Saints, Raiders, Cardinals, 49ers, Dolphins, Bills. This schedule is much harder in 2023.
You ran through pretty fast of some easier teams. Cardinals are going to be one of the worst teams. Raiders, we shall see.
We're not sure. If the Cardinals in the second half of the season have Kyler back, they can win that game.
Maybe.
With Cardinals with
Yeah.
Kyler Murray, we're not that great regardless.
It's a fact.
And that's nothing against
They're
Kyler.
pretty shitty.
They're
But
not good.
I look at the Saints. They'll be competitive. The
Defense is
only team really
great.
that I think
team-
won't be competitive is the Raiders and Cardinals.
Yeah.
And even then, we're not sure what moves they're going to make to improve the roster. It's early, but I'm just saying from just a bird's eye view, the schedule this upcoming season seems much more difficult. And I think that's why Joe Shane and Dable are going to have a 2-year window to try and compete as much as they can in a weak NFC. And they have 11 picks in this draft, so they'll draft those players, they'll fill up those holes. But we mentioned this earlier in the season. 2024 free agents, unrestricted. Dexter Lawrence, Xavier McKinney. They're going to have to pay them. Daniel Jones, we'll see if he plays great again this upcoming season. You know, you have options in the draft where you could draft wide receivers or you can trade for somebody that's proven.
Fact.
You can go either direction. I'm just not so quick to just prop up Daniel Jones because he had a good season. I wouldn't even say great. I think he had a good season.
He had a good
He
season.
had a good season. And he's a quarterback that is going to teeter around the 15 to 20 range. He's not a great quarterback. He's a good one. If you have a great and elite level team around him, he could win multiple playoff games.
He didn't have a great, barely had a
Multiple?
good.
It depends on your
Listen, bro,
opponents.
it's very simple. He did not have a good team this year, and he won a playoff game.
Well, he did have a great coach, a phenomenal coach.
100%.
You get
And Brian
past the
Dable.
first round, then
I
you have to play
think-
the Eagles, the Niners.
And
It gets
so-
tough.
Yeah.
But
I
you're right.
think we have to just understand how much coaching plays into this.
Definitely.
You have Brian Dable, you have Wink Martindale defensively. Those are two staples, and Mike Kafka, who could have probably been a head coach, he's their OC. They're going to have that. So, and I think that matters a lot. But the Giants have to build this roster up first because the cornerbacks are still lacking. They have no linebackers. I love their defensive line. They have good safeties in Julian Love and Xavier McKinney.
Offensive line needs work.
Yeah, it does need some work. Yeah, I agree.
Got to hope and pray on Evan Neal's progression because this rookie season was rough.
I agree, but we look at the Giants, and this past season they had a bottom 20 defense in the NFL. Their offense was one of the better rushing offenses, but year to year, given Saquon's injury history, we're counting on him to stay healthy, no doubt. But we never know what happens in the NFL. We never know what happens.
True.
So I just don't know if this season is repeatable. I think that they caught lightning in a bottle. They wrote it out. They won a lot of close games. It's good for them. They had a fantastic season. But I'm not jumping the gun on this too much. I think that they have to still make a lot of moves to where I'm looking at them as a legit team in the
Theoretically, last thing I'll say, John, you can go. I apologize. Theoretically, this team should be better this year than it was this previous one.
Yeah.
Theoretically.
Talent-wise, yes.
Absolutely. The
Record,
team
maybe.
should be better. You understand that with a subpar team, you're able to win a playoff game. It simply cannot be the case that you saw you could have success with limited talent, that if you're the front office, you don't understand, hey, if we actually put pieces around these guys, maybe we can win 2 playoff games instead of 1. Maybe we can make the NFC Championship game if we make the right moves. But that's off the fact that we just won with mediocrity. Go ahead.
Coaching matters. That's half the game in the NFL. So what this means for the Giants, Jones gets 4 years, $160 million. When you see that number, you say, holy cow, that's a massive overpay, $40 million. But what matters is the guaranteed money. So the first year is only going to be a $19 million cap hit, which gives them the flexibility to give Saquon Barkley the non-exclusive franchise tag for $10 million. Now, the Giants got this off right before the 4 p.m. deadline, which was huge because Jones would have been the youngest quarterback to ever get the franchise tag. And like you said, Dehls, great point. So Jones this year, one thing we don't give him enough credit for is cutting down the turnovers. Just 4 fumbles, played in every single game minus the week 18 game versus the Eagles. That was step number 1. He cuts out the fumbles. Step number 2, with a bad interior offensive line, he does a great job evading pressure.
Definitely.
And then step number 3, helping extend drives with their play action. Now, their offense was incredibly gimmicky, and that's where Brian Dable comes in. He has the proven track record of whether it was at Alabama, whether it was in Buffalo, Josh Allen, and now in New York, everywhere he's went the last couple of stops, he's been to quite a few. He has taken that tutelage, what he learned from Bill Belichick, and helped apply that to the development of young quarterbacks. So for Daniel Jones, making him this highly paid, for 2 years, like you said, a great point, they're in a weird stage where they should be rebuilding, but you win a playoff game is tough to tell ownership, or actually, even though we were one of the final 8 teams, we have to then take a step back. Now you have to see where we can build off of this. The next step in the draft is hitting on the wide receiver, because when you give Jones $94 million guaranteed at signing, $82 million guaranteed over 2 years, you still don't have an abundance of cap to then go out and get a DeAndre Hopkins. That's probably not going to happen for the Giants. So Saquon Barkley, the other layer of this too is, if another team wants to give him more money, he can negotiate and he cannot be a Giant next season. That's possible. Now, I don't know if any other team is going to give him more than $10 million, but that's somewhere in the realm.
Mm-hmm.
And the last thing for Daniel Jones, he's 25 years old. He's still getting better. So while we can bash him now, I agree with you. Daniel Jones, I don't think is ever going to be a top 10 quarterback. I think he's too limited to throw the football, especially downfield. Where Dable did scheme up a lot of open throws, but you wouldn't see them because Daniel wasn't even taking a lot of those shots unless they were wide open. And he has good receivers. I love the point you make. Isaiah Hodgins not a scrub. Brian Dable and Daniel Jones both did a good job doing their own roles to help Isaiah Hodgins prove himself.
I'm proud of you to get that statement off without smiling. I'm proud of you. I really am.
I think he's spitting facts. I mean, Hodgins got open on film.
He was.
He got open.
He did.
And you got to hit those shots. So let's be honest.
He got open in the
Daniel
intermediate.
Jones,
And Daniel Jones hit him every single time. There's no deep threat on the Giants. 1, they're too slow. And 2, you don't have any guy that can be physical and you could trust downfield.
Well,
There
number
are multiple plays where receivers are open on the field and Jones is not.
You know what I
take
remember
shots.
vividly? The first one that came to my head. Darius Slayton, wide open on a deep pass, and it goes right through his hands and he can't bring it back in. I feel like I have seen that from Darius Slayton so
doesn't
often.
mean you don't
but
take the shots.
that's
though.
no. But why would you take that shot when there's a strong possibility? 1, you're not going to convert it. 2, why would you risk the interception when you could just hit the intermediate throw and continue moving the chains and waste clock? If you have limited options, you got to play smart. You can't take a risk and potentially throw an interception and turn the ball over because the receiver's not getting played.
Well,
not in
an
2023.
elite level quarterback's going to make that happen.
I don't know. I just don't think this is debatable. Daniel Jones missed shots. It is what it is.
He didn't take them.
But again,
it's one thing.
offensive
not
line
missing,
is
it's another
not
thing not taking
good. There's pressure in his face. He has to extend.
But
in that moment, yes, you look away. You're not looking downfield. You're focusing on evading. There's reasons why you miss throws. His offensive line, although Andrew Thomas is elite, there is not a lot of other support on that offensive line.
Sure.
Evan Neal was very bad for a rookie.
I think what you're saying is sound in a general and broad sense, but there are specific plays where those problems are not apparent. The offensive line is not the issue. The receivers are open, and he has time. He doesn't see throws.
every week.
That's also happens. And I'm not going to act like I'm watching this all 22 because all I did was watch a Brett Coleman video, film analysis on Daniel Jones.
I saw that.
And he pointed out a bunch of throws Daniel Jones did not hit. This is somebody that I respect Brett Coleman's opinion a lot. So while Daniel Jones did play good, he also missed a lot of stuff. And even his analysis on Daniel Jones was that Brian Daboll made it really simple for him. So I know for me, I can't point that stuff out because I'm watching it from the broadcast view. I don't know what's happening past 10 yards down the field. But somebody who takes the time to watch the film like he does, I do respect his opinion. And I kind of take that into account. I think Daniel Jones is somebody that, as much praise as we want to give him, we also have to be realistic about who he is.
So Jones is a high-level floor raiser. He's a great game manager, but he's not going to raise your ceiling to the highest levels, and that's okay to accept. But it's an important thing for the Giants to monitor, look for alternative options. That way you don't become the Tennessee Titans.
And I think that's what the Giants did with this contract. It's a 2-year deal. That's all it is. And we said it, a couple of weeks ago when we were previewing or maybe just discussing the rumors that were going on around $45 million. And although you'd never want to give him $40 million on an annual basis, the worser thing you could have done, if that's a word, is pay him $32 million on the franchise tag, and you have no flexibility because since it's basically half of that at $19 million, now the Giants could actually make improvements to this team. But to talk about Daniel Jones and this contract, when I first saw it, 4 years, 160, up to $35 million in incentives. You sit there and you say, you're going to pay Daniel Jones maybe $50 million a year. That's not ideal. But then once the numbers come out, you get the guaranteed money. When the guaranteed money is, it's a 2-year contract. That's all it is. It allows the Giants to kind of see what they have in Daniel Jones, not have an extremely long commitment towards him. And honestly, I think with Brian Daboll, it's going to be pretty hard for Daniel Jones to suck, right? Maybe he's not going to go out there being an all-pro quarterback. He's not going to be a top 5 guy. But he's also shouldn't wreck your team, right? He shouldn't go out there and be Zach Wilson and be the worst starting quarterback in the league. So I think there's at least a floor we have with Daniel Jones now that the front office could pay him and say, we know if he gives us what he did last year, we're okay with that. Because like Drew mentioned, I don't know realistically what other options were out there. They're drafting in the late 20s. They do have some cap space, but now you're paying Daniel Jones. You were never probably going to let Daniel Jones walk and bring in somebody else. It was always Daniel Jones and maybe a draft pick or a free agency on a cheaper contract. And who knows, maybe they could be in the market for one of the high-level backups, although they do seem pretty confident in Daniel Jones, maybe bringing back Tyrod Taylor, who could make a spot start here and there. But I think overall for the Giants, it was the right move. If you want to bring back Saquon, you want to bring back Daniel Jones, this is the way to do it. You franchise Saquon. And I know there were some people talking about like the whole non-exclusive stuff. No, Saquon's going nowhere. No team is trading 2 first-round picks, which is basically what you would have to do to get Saquon Barkley. No one's doing that for a running back, plus paying him whatever it was.
So that doesn't change by position, whether it's a quarterback or running back. It's two first-round picks. Holy shit!
So no team.
I thought the other way around.
Yeah, no team is doing that for a running back, no matter how great you are. We're gonna talk about Derek Henry later. He'll probably go for a 2nd or 3rd round pick, right? So I think for the Giants, I know I haven't been the highest on Daniel Jones over this past year. You still have to look at it realistically. He's probably the 8th or 9th best quarterback in the conference, in the weaker conference with the weaker quarterbacks. He's going to be the 3rd best quarterback in his division behind Jalen Hurts and Dak Prescott. So for the Giants to really make noise in the playoffs, they're going to have to make drastic improvements on the defensive side of the ball, I think. If this defense isn't elite, I have a hard time seeing them really winning multiple playoff games, getting to a championship game, maybe getting to a Super Bowl. They'll be competitive. They'll be in the wild card race. Maybe some unfortunate things happens to Dallas and the Eagles, and they could squeak by and win 11 games one year and win a division, right? But it is hard to see Daniel Jones, like you mentioned, John, raising the ceiling of this team and becoming a 4,000-yard passer with 30 touchdowns and getting MVP votes, which is basically what you're expected to do at $40 million. This is basically the Dak Prescott contract from a couple years ago. It's 4 years, $160 million. We know Dak Prescott had proven so much more than Daniel Jones did at the time. It was just unfortunate timing for the Giants. They had to pay him now, or else he would walk in free agency. But I think for the situation they were in, which I've been saying basically for the last 3 months, it's a less than ideal situation having to pay Saquon and Daniel Jones with all these other holes. I think they made the best out of a bad situation.
What they did is what they had to do. That's really what it comes down to. What they did is what they had to do. You know, they could not draft a quarterback. They couldn't. You know, the only way is to go forward.
And that's the shit that kills me. It's like everyone's having a coronary on Twitter. It's like, what did you want the Giants to do? Because you let Daniel Jones walk, right? And then you're happy about that. But then the Giants suck. What are you going to do? You're going to get on Twitter. You're going to use your fingers, and you're going to type away saying how bad the Giants are. You should have kept Daniel Jones. There was no win-win here. Daniel Jones needed to get paid. The Giants messed up last offseason by not accepting his fifth-year option in hindsight. We can understand that at the time, sure, he wasn't deserving of that fifth year. But in hindsight, they messed up by not accepting that fifth-year option. Now they put them in this position where they were handcuffed. You had to pay Daniel Jones because you legitimately had no other option. So that's the only thing that bothers me about that situation is just like everyone has an opinion, especially when it comes to the Giants and Daniel Jones. So just understand that there was limited that the Giants could do, and they did exactly what needed to be done this offseason so far.